Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Monday, April 10th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Monday in Major League Baseball. First up, the lone afternoon game for Monday's card. It's going to be between the Chicago White Sox and the Minnesota Twins. Dylan Cease and Kenta Maeda are your starting pitchers. There's no doubting the Minnesota Twins are off to a great start to the season. They took a series win over the defending World Series champion Astros this weekend, and Kenta Maeda pitched pretty well in his first start back after being injured for most of the year last year. He went 5 innings, 1 run, and 9 strikeouts against the Miami Marlins in his first start of this season, but he did leave the game a little bit early because of fatigue, and I do worry about that in a game like this, facing a much tougher lineup in the Chicago White Sox. We know the White Sox have struggled to start 2023, but it really hasn't been because of the lineup. They're scoring runs fine. They're just the pitching staff and really the bullpen has struggled so much to start the year, but now you have one of your best, certainly your best starter in the rotation, and Dylan Cease on the mound, a guy who finished in the top 3 in Cy Young voting in the American League last year, and he's off to a good start this season. We're getting a really good price with one of the best pitchers in the American League and a very strong Chicago White Sox lineup. The bullpen has been dicey, but I think if Cease can give us 6 to 7 strong innings, we shouldn't have to worry about that bullpen. I say that hoping that we shouldn't have to worry about that bullpen. So give me the Chicago White Sox here at a really good price. Next up, it's the New York Yankees taking on the Cleveland Guardians. We're going to see Domingo Germán and Shane Bieber as the starters in this one. Domingo Germán against the Phillies in his first start was pretty sharp, I would say. He made some mistake pitches and he did give up some sharp contact, but he was able to miss some bats and earn some strikeouts, and overall gave the Yankees pretty good innings in that game. The offense just didn't back him up in the end. But, I do think Germán will be a solid option in this Yankees rotation going forward. I just don't like this matchup for him against the Guardians, a team that does a great job at limiting strikeouts, especially against right-handed pitching. And, I do think Cleveland will be able to get to Germán for a few runs early on. And the Guardians also have their best starter, their ace on the mound in this one, in Shane Bieber. He didn't play against the Yankees in the regular season last year, but he did pitch against them in the postseason, and he was sharp in that game. So there's no reason for me to believe after Bieber put together 2 good starts to start the regular season this year that he shouldn't be able to go out there and give the Guardians a quality outing in this game as well. And then you got one of the best bullpens in baseball to rely on and one of the best closers in Emmanuel Clase. So I think the Guardians at a pretty good price here are going to take this one on the money line. So give me Cleveland money line. Next up, it's the Oakland Athletics taking on the Baltimore Orioles. No official starter for the Oakland A's in this one. We see a lot of that for Monday's games in baseball, as a lot of these teams are traveling into different series and the pitching information is up in the air. So I'm going to try to update you guys in the comments section once the video gets posted. But right now, we're going to work with what we got. And right now, we see Kyle Gibson against to be announced. I do see JP Sears listed on ESPN, so he could very well be the guy that goes. But usually I check for MLB.com just to confirm those starting pitching announcements. But JP Sears in his first start struggled. He gave up 8 base hits in 4 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs as well, a home run against the Cleveland Guardians. And that's not a lineup that's notoriously good at hitting left-handed pitching. So I do think that Kyle Gibson has a pretty good advantage in this game with the Orioles bats behind him. The Orioles are crushing lefties so far this season if Sears is the guy to go. And even if he doesn't pitch in this game, the Oakland A's have one of the worst bullpens in baseball. So for me, the Orioles have a big advantage in this one. These are the types of series that if the Orioles want to make the playoffs this year, these are the series and the games you really got to take care of and try to earn that sweep at Camden Yards. So give me the Baltimore Orioles. I think they take this game comfortably. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. We're going to see Framber Valdez and Rowanzi Contreras as your starters. The Houston Astros have to be a little bit disappointed with their start to 2023, but I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to earn a nice win in this game as well, with a pretty good pitching matchup advantage, and overall the lineup and bullpen much better to go with it. Framber Valdez to start the season, 12 innings, pretty sharp baseball, only 2 earned runs allowed, with 13 strikeouts and only 1 walk allowed. We know Framber Valdez likes to keep the ball on the ground. He hasn't given up a home run yet this season, so he is pitching, pretty much in mid-season form already. Rowanzi Contreras on the other side, he pitched pretty well against the Red Sox in his first outing, went 5 2/3 innings, only giving up 1 earned run, but he did only have 2 strikeouts in that game. A little bit concerning, as I would consider Rowanzi Contreras more of a strikeout-dependent pitcher. So I do think the Astros, could be able to get to Contreras for a few runs early on, and that should be enough with Framber on the mound, who can usually give the Astros 6 to 7, maybe even 8 innings of really good baseball. So I'm going to take the Houston Astros here and lay the 1.5 runs on the road. Next up, it's the Boston Red Sox taking on the Tampa Bay Rays with Nick Pivetta and Josh Fleming as your starters. I can't trust either of these starting pitching options in a game like this, and with both lineups playing really good baseball, especially over the weekend, I think the over is certainly in play in this AL East rivalry game. Nick Pivetta pitched pretty well in that first start against the Pirates, only giving up 1 earned run, but he gave up 2 home runs in that game, 3 walks as well, and a lot of sharp contact to go with it. Against the Tampa Bay Rays, a much tougher lineup on the road, I do think Pivetta struggles and could certainly give up another couple home runs in this game. On the other side, Josh Fleming was not sharp. He's been one of the only Rays starting pitchers that hasn't been sharp to start the season. In his first game against one of the weakest lineups in baseball in the Washington Nationals, Fleming gave up 10 base hits and only 3 innings of work with 5 earned runs to go with it. The Red Sox lineup really had a breakout weekend against the Detroit Tigers. I think they could certainly get to Fleming for a few early on. Give me the over in this Red Sox-Rays ballgame. Next up, we see the Miami Marlins taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Sandy Alcantara and Matt Strahm are your starters. Now, it's funny, Matt Strahm pitched his last start against the New York Yankees. It was a game where I thought he was just going to be the opener. It looked like Strahm was just going to go 1, maybe 2 innings at the most against the Yankees, and then the Phillies, who had a well-rested bullpen going into that game, would just rely on that pretty good bullpen on paper. But I was wrong. Matt Strahm pitched up deep into that game, really kind of against my wishes. I took the Phillies in that game. That was actually our rundown best bet for the day. And the Phillies scored some runs early on for us, but I was watching Matt Strahm give up a lot of sharp contact, a lot of fly balls. I was getting a little bit concerned with him still being in that game in the 4th inning. So, I do think in his second start, even though it's against the Marlins, who have not been good against lefties and overall just haven't been great offensively, I watched Matt Strahm give up a lot of fly balls in that game. I do think he is susceptible to getting hit in this game against the Marlins. And Sandy Alcantara on the other side, how many times we're going to get a price like this with Sandy on the mound? He's been sharp to start the year for the Marlins, giving them plenty of good innings to start the season. He's missing some bats. He's just coming off a 9-inning complete game shutout against the Minnesota Twins, one of the best lineups in the American League to start the year. So Sandy's in great form, and Matt Strahm, I have my concerns in his game. So give me the Miami Marlins here at a pretty good price. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres and the New York Mets, an emerging rivalry in the National League, as this is a rematch from the National League Wildcard Series. Yu Darvish, Max Scherzer, great pitching matchup here. Yu Darvish, I was a little bit concerned with I would say not more than a little bit concerned with his last start against the Arizona Diamondbacks. He had no command really at all in that game. He was walking batters, hitting batters. He wasn't striking out many guys, and it was kind of fortunate for him that he only gave up 1 earned run in that game, as the Diamondbacks had plenty of chances to get to him for a few runs in the first few innings. Now, Arizona was able to get to the bullpen and win that game in the end, but I do think that Yu Darvish, although he pitched really well against the Mets last season, if he has no control and no command, the New York Mets are the kings of drawing high pitch counts, taking hit by pitches. I think they led the league in hit by pitches by a mile last year. They will make a pitcher work for it. And although, Darvish had success against the Mets, I am concerned with them in this spot at Citi Field. Should be a sold-out crowd, basically. And Max Scherzer on the other side, he had some struggles in his last couple of starts. We saw his first outing against the Miami Marlins, where he was razor sharp until the last couple of innings, gave up a home run to Garrett Cooper. His last start was not his best either against the Milwaukee Brewers, gave up 3 home runs in that game. But I still think Mad Max, one of the best pitchers in the National League, should sharpen up. His strikeout stuff hasn't been too bad to start the season. His velocity's kind of been a little bit inconsistent, but I think he's good enough here because I think the Mets bats are going to back him up in a big way. So give me the New York Mets here on the money line at this minus 140 price. Next up, it's the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Atlanta Braves. We're going to see Graham Ashcraft and Bryce Elder as the projected starters, but there is no official lineup for this game, so we could see a pitching change. It's why we put pitchers and odds subject to change on the screen. We're going to see a lot of it this MLB season, but Graham Ashcraft and Bryce Elder, both guys really impressed me in their first starts of the season. Graham Ashcraft went 7 innings, only 1 earned run, only 4 base hits with 6 strikeouts and only 1 walk against the Pittsburgh Pirates in a low-scoring win for the Reds. On the other side, Bryce Elder was not a starter that I was too fond of last year, and going into this season really wasn't on my radar. Got to give him credit, though. He faced a very tough St. Louis Cardinals lineup. He went 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, shutout baseball, no home runs. Really impressive stuff. Now he's facing the Cincinnati Reds at home. I expect Elder to put together a pretty solid outing if he is, in fact, the guy that goes on the mound here. The Braves have one of the best bullpens in baseball. According to Fangraphs, the number 1 bullpen in projected WAR. So to me, this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think this is a game where I think this would be the game in this series that the Reds have the best chance at competing in and winning. But for me, just going to lean towards the under in Reds-Braves. Next up, it's the Seattle Mariners taking on the Chicago Cubs. We're going to see Drew Smyly for the Cubs. No official starter for the Mariners right now, but I am seeing Luis Castillo on ESPN, so he could very well be the starter that goes for the Mariners. And if he is, it makes me like the under even more, but I still like the under in this game. Drew Smyly, kind of like Kyle Hendricks, I would consider him a very Wrigley Field pitcher, a guy that's not going to do too well on the road, but at home at Wrigley Field, like we saw last year in 44 and 2/3 innings where he had a 2.42 ERA, I do think Smyly will be able to succeed at home in his home starts at Wrigley. We saw him struggle at Great American Ballpark. He gave up plenty of base hits and earned runs, but he's a starter that has his defense get the outs for him. He's a guy that keeps the ball on the ground for the most part, and I do think against the Mariners, a team that's not been great against lefties to start the year, Smyly will be able to put together a good outing. We know Luis Castillo, one of the best pitchers in the American League. If he is the starter that goes for the Mariners, he should put together another good outing for him in this one. And I do think the Mariners have one of the better bullpens in the American League to go with it. So this to me looks like a pitching duel between both teams. The Cubs bullpen hasn't been too bad to start the year. Give me the under in the Mariners and the Cubs. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Texas Rangers. Zach Greinke and Andrew Heaney are your projected starters. Andrew Heaney's control wasn't the best in his first start, but I do think against a weak Kansas City Royals lineup, I think he's going to put together a good outing for the Rangers. And Zach Greinke on the other side, although he's pitched well to start the year at 2.38 ERA, his offense has not been able to back him up. That's why he's 0-2 in the win-loss record. But the big thing for me is Greinke, his first two starts were at home. Last year we saw at Kauffman Stadium, he had a 1.91 ERA in his home innings, but on the road, 5.32. He was just nowhere near the same pitcher on the road as he was at Kauffman, and now he's playing against the Texas Rangers. Out on the road, this is a tough spot for Greinke to be in, tough spot for the Royals bullpen as well, and I don't think their lineup is enough here to back them up. So give me the Texas Rangers. I'm going to take them on the run line. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Colorado Rockies. We're going to see Steven Matz as a starter for the Cardinals. No official starter for the Rockies right now. Steven Matz is still a starter. I think he's going to have a good year in 2023, but he certainly didn't have a very good outing in his first start of the season. It was a tough matchup against the Braves, where the Braves have one of the best lineups in baseball against lefties, but it's not going to get any easier for Matz as he goes out to Coors Field against the Rockies team that last year hit lefties well at home. Steven Matz, he was able to miss some bats. He had 7 strikeouts and 5 1/3, but he gave up a lot of base hits and 2 home runs to go with it. Not the most promising sign going into Coors Field here, but I think his Cardinals lineup is going to be able to back him up offensively. I don't trust this Rockies pitching staff. We've seen it struggle in the National Series this weekend, and I do think that the Cardinals, a lineup that doesn't strike out much, puts the ball in play, they should be able to score plenty of runs in a game like this. Steven Matz is probably going to give up 3, 4, 5 runs in this game, but it still might be enough for a Cardinals win in the end. So I'm going to lean towards the over, and I'm going to lean towards the Cardinals here on the money line, which should be a pretty entertaining game if you like offense. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Los Angeles Angels. We're going to see Jose Suarez listed for the Angels in this game. No official starter for the Nationals. I am seeing Patrick Corbin on ESPN, so he could very well be the guy that goes in this one. But no matter who's on the mound for the Nationals, I'm fading them in this game. They just played a 4-game series at Coors Field and don't have a day off in between. That's a nightmare for most teams offensively. It's why the Rockies struggle so much throughout the year on the road, because the altitude difference, it really takes a toll on those hitters, and I think the Nationals are going to struggle offensively even against Jose Suarez, who was not very sharp in his first start of the year. I still think he's the better option on the mound if it's Patrick Corbin on the other side. I think the Angels will be able to get to Patrick Corbin and the Nationals bullpen, and I don't think the Nationals put up a fight offensively. So give me the Angels here. I'm lay the 1.5 runs. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Wade Miley as a starter for the Brewers. I like Diamondbacks in this game. Although Wade Miley pitched well against the New York Mets in his first outing, that's the New York Mets lineup has pretty much in the last couple of years proven that they don't hit lefties too well, especially compared to righties. Wade Miley only had 3 strikeouts in that game against the Mets in 6 innings of work. The Diamondbacks are competing with some of the better teams in the National League. They played a really tough schedule thus far. They played the Dodgers twice now in a series and the Padres, and they're playing pretty competitive baseball offensively, especially we saw on Saturday night scoring 12 runs in a 12-8 win over LAD. I like the Diamondbacks offense to get to Miley. The bullpen's not the strongest. The starting pitching hasn't been the best, but I think it's good enough here for the bats to take care of the rest. So give me the Arizona Diamondbacks here. I'm going to take them on the money line. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. No official line for this game, but we should see Julio Urias on the mound for the Dodgers. And, I think this is a pretty good matchup for him. Although I have my concerns on Urias' game going into the season, he's been able to strike out plenty of batters, 12 Ks in 12 innings. He hasn't given up a single walk or home run. He's keeping the ball on the ground, and he's in really good form going into this start. And he's facing a Giants lineup that struggled against lefties to start the season. So for me, Urias should have a great outing for the Dodgers. Give him 6-7 strong innings again, and I think the Dodgers will get to the Giants pitching staff for a few runs, enough to win this game. So give me the Los Angeles Dodgers here. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs on the road. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.